Hello, everyone. I'm just going to ask my colleagues, Soumya, how many folks have signed in? Should we give people another minute or two, or no?
We should give another minute. We have 20 attendees right now.
Okay. All right, everyone. We'll just wait for a minute or two. We had about 90 people register, so just want to give folks maybe another minute or two to join. Maybe while we're doing that, for at least those who are here, if you haven't been on one of our webinars before, my name is Steve Vanstone. I'm based in Toronto. I'm responsible for sales and relationship management for a number of our clients, and I've been asked to spend a lot of time now, given the decision that credit unions face of moving off member director Forge to a new digital provider, to meet as many of you as I can. My colleague Vishal Dayani is here. Vishal is in our commercial banking line of business, and he will be doing the demo of our commercial solution. And we also have Stacy Schmidt, who is here and will be chatting with me about 10 or 12 minutes into the session. Stacy works at Canadian Western Bank, although I guess strictly speaking, now part of National Bank of Canada. And we also have my colleague Dimple, who is our product lead for our digital engagement platform, and may be involved in answering some of the questions that arise. What we will do is you will be able to type in questions using the Q&A button. And we will start with those at the end of the webinar. We'll allow at least 10 minutes for questions. We'll work through those, and we'll finish up at the top of the hour. Soumya, based on the number of people engaged, should we get going?
Yeah, we have 49 attendees, so
okay,
we can start.
Very good. Okay, let's get going. So Soumya, if you could bring up the slides, if you would. So again, thanks everyone for joining. This is the first in a series of the third, not the first, the third in the series of webinars that we're doing that Central One is helping us with around the Intellect digital engagement platform solution. We've had two already, one before the holidays on our retail solution and an overview of our firm. The second one was focused mainly on implementation and integration. If you didn't attend those webinars, a recording of those is available on our website, and you can also get the set of slides from our colleagues at Central One. So, maybe if you could go to the slide show view, if you wouldn't mind, of the slides, and move forward to the next slide. So here's the agenda for today. I will give a bit of an overview of Intellect as a firm. It'll be abbreviated, as I expect a number of folks have been on our first two webinars, and we've done that as well. But for folks who are new, we'll do that. We'll talk briefly about the commercial digital packages that are available. As I mentioned earlier, for those who are on right at the start, I'll have a discussion with Stacy Schmidt, who is a customer of Intellect for our digital front-end solution for commercial customers. And then we'll spend the bulk of the rest of the time in a commercial digital solution demo. And we're actually going to do this in two parts. And I'll explain why later, but the first part will be things that are actually included in our initial packages. And then the second portion will show incremental future capabilities that some credit unions might be interested in down the road. So if you could move forward one slide, Soumya, please. Soumya, it doesn't seem to be moving forward for me. Okay, there we go. So Intellect Design has been in business for about 30 years, as part of, for the first 20 of those, as a part of a combined software and services business called Polaris Software. A little over 10 years ago, that company demerged and split the services business off from the software business, and we became a publicly traded independent company called Intellect Design. We're traded on Indian Stock Exchange. As you can see here, we've got over 6,000 employees around the world, a large number of banking and cooperative clients. In Canada today, we have 80 employees and about 300 employees serving Canadian financial institutions such as Vancity, Canadian Western Bank, and several of the big banks, and also subsidiaries of foreign banks. I would imagine most, if not all of you, are aware that at the end of this month, as a result of an announcement that we made with Central One earlier this year, we are working with them on a Forge and Member Direct operating partnership, where Intellect will be responsible for delivering those solutions in partnership with Central One, who will support us from an infrastructure services perspective. We have a number of different lines of business of most importance to credit unions here and related to the solutions we're offering. A consumer banking business globally, and then a commercial banking business globally as well. One thing I wanted to point out is that much like credit unions, Intellect as an organization takes sustainability and associated values very seriously. In fact, we produce an annual sustainability report, which is available to be downloaded from our site. When we send out the follow-up to all attendees and registrants, we'll include a link to that sustainability report. We're also, much like all credit unions, very concerned about where we operate. And we actually have, in cooperation with our chairman, several different charities that we actively support. We have a charity that supports education for young Indian students, and another one that has used design thinking principles to create a framework to help train local government organizations and councils to better manage all the complexities of local government. So if you want to move forward, what I'd like to talk about now here as a bit of an overview of Intellect is, why do we think a partnership for your credit union with Intellect will be of value? And I'm going to specifically focus on this framework that some of you will have seen before, but specifically focus on the commercial line of business in my brief remarks here. So in terms of growing revenue, one of the things that we've learned as we've talked to credit unions is that a number of credit unions, including organizations outside the largest, say 10 or 20 in the country, are looking at the commercial segment as a potential area for growth. So for credit unions with that interest, those ambitions, be it in the immediate term, in the medium term, or the long term, we've got one of the best commercial digital offerings in the world, used by organizations of various sizes, including in Canada by Canadian Western Bank. Portions of it are used by RBC, and portions are used by CIBC. And when Vancity chose Intellect last year for our digital engagement platform, they've also chosen us for commercial banking platform as well. You know, it supports payments, cash and working capital management, and other capabilities, and even modestly sized commercial entities need such capability. And as I mentioned earlier, many credit unions have some significant ambitions in the commercial space. And our solution, should you implement it immediately or implement it down the road, would frankly allow your credit union to be as ambitious as you would like to be, and have as comparable a set of offerings to the big five banks as you would like to have. And certainly in your community, there would likely be many commercial organizations who are local or who are regional, or some who may even do business outside of Canada that will have these needs, and you'll be able to, should you choose, bring to them as much as you might like. As someone I just spoke to today mentioned, commercial entities in my community are getting these services from someone, they're just not getting them from us. And we also commit to bringing to the credit unions who subscribe to this capability the best, not just from Canada, but from around the world. In terms of managing costs, our solution, like our retail and small business solutions, are out-of-the-box solutions that are Canada-ready, that will allow rapid and low-cost implementation. And as one example of managing ongoing costs, we have very extensive self-service capability for all the personas within a commercial entity that might use the solution for sales, for transactions, and member service activities. In terms of reducing risk, as I mentioned earlier, this is a proven and Canada-ready solution already used by organizations here. We've got significant proven and never had a failure delivery and managed services experience. We bring a scale in Canada and globally that I mentioned earlier. And in fact, as many of you will know, a great number of the digital staff from Central One will be joining us when our arrangement for the Member Direct and Forge partnership closes. So we'll have even more scale when they join. We're a publicly traded, transparent company. So as you're looking at us as a potential partner, we're completely transparent about the financial aspects of our business. And in addition, there's no need if you select Intellect to take any other solution in addition to digital. No need to pick a particular CRM package. No need to spend kind of years working with a vendor to go live, as has been seen with some of our competitors here in Canada. And then finally, in terms of deepening member relationships, as I mentioned earlier, should you choose us and work with us over the medium to long term, you'll ultimately have the ability to offer as much as big banks offer if you choose, if the credit union wants to go there, or more basic payment, cash management, balance and transaction reporting capabilities, depending on your strategy. So, Soumya, maybe if you could move to the next slide then. In any event, that's why we think in summary that we'd be a good partner in the commercial space for your credit union. We're happy, as I've said on previous webinars, to engage with you as soon as you like. On the first slide of this deck and on the last slide is my email and phone number. We will be sending this deck out in a day or two following this session. So please do reach out if we haven't already started talking on whatever timeline works best for your credit union. If we jump forward, I'll briefly touch on the commercial packages. We have two here. Commercial Silver package, which is in terms of capabilities, covers what's available today. Also includes what we've referred to as pre-login, but is the public website capabilities. And incrementally, we will be offering credit card and it says new to bank, my apologies, should say new to credit union onboarding capabilities that we talked about in our first webinar. And as I mentioned, when we do the demo, you'll see capabilities that aren't necessarily available initially, but that could be places the credit union could grow. However, if you do see them and you are interested in commercial and you are interested in some of those capabilities, we're certainly happy to talk about that. One final thing I should mention, in addition to being ready to talk about your credit union, your strategy, have us learn more about you and how we might best serve you, and doing demos, we are also now starting to talk to credit unions who are interested in what our pricing is. So that can certainly form part of an initial discussion or follow-on discussions. The next slide then, please, Soumya. All right. So I mentioned that we're going to have a discussion with a current client of Intellect's in the commercial banking space. So I'm joined today by Stacy Schmidt, who is currently, you saw his titles there. He's currently responsible at CWB, which is now part, as of, I guess, Monday, Stacy, of National Bank of Canada for the core banking solutions. And prior to that, Stacy was responsible for delivery around digital programs. And he was involved when Canadian Western Bank selected us, and then during our implementation and operations of the solution. So, Stacy, welcome. Maybe if you could give a slightly deeper and broader introduction to yourself and your role at CWB/National Bank.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Steve. Thanks for having me today. As Stephen mentioned, I'm Stacy Schmidt. While we were working with Intellect, my role was head of delivery and management for our digital program, which included responsibility across our transformational program. We had a number of different work streams, vendors and products we were working with, and included all the work with Intellect on the commercial banking platform. So I led the teams that were involved with the requirements and the design, as well as the overall schedule and deliverables for the program and for the work stream and the work with Intellect. And as you probably know, National Bank has acquired CWB, so I am currently part of the leadership team for our technology and operations group, working with them on the integration of our organization. So I know in the credit union space, it's not an uncommon thing to have mergers. We're going through one right now, and it's interesting and not linear.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a number of folks on the call that can provide you some advice on mergers.
More than likely true, yeah.
Stacy, well, welcome. Maybe to start, the first couple of questions, if you could maybe describe, what drove the bank's decision to select Intellect for your commercial digital partner, and what did you and your team see as the key strengths and differentiators that Intellect offered that helped you make that decision?
Sure. Commercial online banking, I mentioned, was one component of our broader digital program, but as a commercial bank, critically important for us to get right, and to be able to deliver something to our clients that was going to meet their needs and keep us competitive in the market. So, when evaluating options, and looking specifically at Intellect, some members of our leadership team had already had experience with Intellect in the past, through another financial institution. And we were already working with Intellect on developing payment services hubs. So, that made the conversation a lot easier and potentially broader in what we could offer. I think some of the key differentiators for us included things like speed to market. We were on a fairly tight timeline, which often happens in large programs like that. And having a baseline product or baseline product readiness. So we were able to see and test and start to understand, a baseline product as opposed to working with concepts, which was important for us as well. So I think that positive relationship and that baseline product certainly helped. We liked that the platform was largely built and that we could get an MVP product into production within our schedule. I guess that was probably the key driver there, Steve.
Yeah, thanks. And by the way, one thing maybe I should have mentioned when I introduced you, which some people on the call might know and some wouldn't, Canadian Western Bank is disproportionately, compared to other banks, focused on the commercial space. Obviously they have retail business, but their main strategic thrust as a bank was the commercial space. And in fact, that is probably the thing that was most attractive, I guess, Stacy, to National Bank, as they're looking to expand their commercial banking business kind of from coast to coast.
Yeah, for sure. And
Yeah.
I've had experience in the credit union space. I worked for Service Credit Union for the better part of a decade, a couple times. I know very retail driven, kind of an 80-20 portfolio mix generally, and we're the opposite. So yeah.
Right. Maybe you could talk about your experience in working with Intellect once selected through the course of the implementation activities.
Sure. I would say overall our experience with Intellect was quite positive. And I would say that our teams had really good working relationships, both within the squads, at the kind of grassroots workshop level and also at the leadership level. So, it was easy to get a hold of somebody at Intellect when we needed to, and found those conversations generally to be quite collaborative. And the accessibility was important to us too. So when we experienced an issue, it was everybody was motivated to get on a call quickly and resolve it as quickly as possible. So we didn't see a lot of things linger which sometimes happens in programs like this. And no program or project of this size and scope comes without any issues. And I think for me, one thing that stood out is when they did arise, and they did, we communicated well, and we worked together to resolve them. So it was, there wasn't a lot of finger pointing and blaming. It was more, how can we collectively resolve this issue to move forward to our common goal, which I think is critical when you're going through stuff like this. We did see some issues with time zones that we had to work through, but that's not uncommon either. And Intellect was, always willing to be flexible in that area. I guess one thing we found, and some maybe advice for the folks on the call, is when we deviated from core, or wanted to customize things, that's where we started to see schedule and budget pressures, which is to be expected. And so the closer we stuck to the core product, the smoother things seemed to go. We did have a number of discussions around scope, which is common. Agreed to disagree on some things, which is also common and a sign of a good relationship, I think. We did work closely with Intellect to build a number of things that I think are in core now, and I'm looking forward to seeing the demo, Steve, just to see how many of them are on there. And so that was cool too. We had an opportunity to help provide input into the product. So
Yeah, great. Thanks, Stacy. Now, of course, as everybody would know, Canadian Western Bank was a mid-sized bank, and the audience today comprises mainly credit unions. I think there are a few bank digital clients of C1 on the call as well. And these organizations are generally a fair bit smaller than CWB was when it was independent. What's your thought on what you would expect around the credit union experience? Do you think that from what you've learned about us, that credit unions would have a similar experience that the bank had? And what other suggestions might you have of over and above what you mentioned for those credit unions?
Yeah. I think they could expect a similar experience. Yeah, I don't think organizational size necessarily drives experience. It's more around the kind of relationship that you establish, and the way that you structure your programs and your projects. What I would say for sure is the more prepared that you can be going into this engagement, the better. Specifically around requirements and your processes and change management, and board support and executive support is critical too. I mentioned I worked at Service Credit Union, so I do understand the credit union system and some of the challenges and constraints that you face with some of the regulatory things that you face, and also size and scalability. So really I would encourage everybody to understand what your success factors are and what success looks like for you, and build in mechanisms in your processes and your contracts to deliver outcomes, and kind of build that accountability into them. When we ran into issues and started to see schedule pressures, I mentioned deviating away from core, but also when we had to go back and figure things out. So readiness before you jump into the project with Intellect or any other vendor, I think is critical. And so there's a lot of work that you can do in advance of those conversations.
Stacy, thanks very much for this. Stacy has kindly agreed to stay on till the end of the webinar. If there are any questions that anyone has, by the way, you can use the Q&A button to type questions in. We'll leave some time at the end of the session to address any questions that arise. And certainly beyond that point, once the webinar is over, if you do have questions, please feel free to reach out. I'd like to introduce my colleague, Vishal Dayani. Now, Vishal is based along with me in Toronto. Don't dislike us for the fact that we're based in Toronto, please. But Vishal will walk us through the demo here. And as I said, I just wanted to reiterate what I mentioned a few minutes ago. We're going to show capabilities that are in our packages, and then near the end, we'll give you a bit of a flavor of some incremental capabilities that credit unions may wish to have implemented. Well, they could implement them right away, but more likely maybe a little down the road. And we can support you with this digital solution and other solutions that we have. to be as ambitious as you would like to be in the commercial banking space. So Vishal, thanks for waiting, and over to you.
Thank you, Steve, for the introduction, and thank you, Stacy, for the kind words and your guidance. So today we'll go through the demonstration of our digital banking solution, which is used by the client users, in your case, the member users. And we have divided our solution into multiple domain packs. Domain packs are nothing but a group of carefully crafted user journeys where the user can perform different actions, and they've been grouped together by the common purpose they solve. So today we'll go through the account services domain pack, followed by payments, and then the differentiators, as Steve mentioned, of liquidity management and sub-accounting, which includes virtual account management and escrow account management. Okay, so I hope you guys can see my screen. Is it up, Steve?
Yes, it is.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so what you see here is our account services module. This is a login page for that. Currently, it holds our theme because this is a demo environment, but this could very well incorporate the theme of the credit union who wants to utilize our services. For demonstration purposes, we've created a fictitious organization called Acme Recreations. And the user that we are going to use is called Norman Richards, who's a senior finance manager at Acme Recreations. So once the user logs in, the first thing you'll notice is that our application is very, very contextual. Since Norman is a chief financial representative from Acme Recreations, they see a comprehensive view of the client's portfolio here, okay? And with respect to account services, it basically is a banking solution for commercial customers, which provides a centralized view of their banking relationship, okay? It helps the businesses efficiently manage their accounts, transactions, and service requests, okay? The key feature here are the account overview that they can go through, the transaction history they can refer to, and through our different domain packs for payments, they can initiate transfers, manage those transfers. So to begin with, as with any self-serve application, we have the left-hand navigation menu through which the user can navigate to different domain packs that they are entitled to. We also have the personalization menus where the user can personalize their experience, right? Based on their requirements, that what will their login page look like, landing page look like, what will be their notification and alert preferences. There's again a draft queue where you can store things while you're working on it and continue on the same at a later point in time. Then we have an approval queue, which refers to the multi-level workflow rules that can be set up for verification of stuff. Here, what you see is a complete view of their banking relationship, classified by the account types, categorized as cash accounts, their credit cards, their bank loans, and their investments. Clicking on these individual cards would filter down the account list that we have here. Okay. Then we have certain illustrations, some graphical illustrations that help the user to be on top of their cash positions at any given point in time. The first illustration is based on the currency. So the two currencies that they operate in, when you hover over it, you get a snapshot of its performance in the past 1 week or 1 month. This illustration can be classified based on the activity as well, which will be based on the number of transactions or the value of transactions. The user has options to filter out transactions by incoming or outgoing. And this can be done for any period in the past. By default, it is shown for the last 30 days. At the same time, the user can see system-generated insights, which will help user in making educated decisions, right, with respect to cash management at their institution. Another important illustration is with respect to the geographical distribution of funds. What you see here on a map, the balances are plotted. And once a user clicks on a specific country, it will drill down to the specific locations within that country where this member has accounts in. And also it will give indications whether those accounts are in surplus or deficit with respect to the working capital management, with respect to the target that they've set up. And in case some account happens to be in deficit, they can execute a money movement and make sure that that particular location has sufficient funds at beginning of day to run their operations smoothly.
Vishal, can I just interrupt briefly just to
Sure.
point one thing out?
Yes.
So one of the things that we support here that might have caused you to ask a question to yourself is the ability we're showing across various geographies. Now, I don't know that there's any Canadian credit union that would have accounts for their members in Canada and in the United States. However, commercial members may have accounts with other organizations, be it banks or credit unions in different geographies. And we support the ability to show you a full view of a member's holdings across institutions. So as you're looking at this, keep that in mind. Back to you, Vishal.
Perfect. So I was coming to that, Steve. So if you can see, these are the account lists. Okay, these are all the accounts that this member has, and you see that it also includes the accounts held in third-party financial institutions. The data, the transaction data and the account data for such accounts is received from other banks through their end of day or intraday statements that we receive from them. Okay, so in this list, you have got multiple options to further sort this data. By default, they're sorted by currency, but it could be the data could be sorted for further analysis by the bank. As we saw, it can include accounts in multiple banks, by country, by entity. By entity, we mean there could be a member organization that has multiple sub-entities, multiple legal entities, a headquarter and some subsidiaries. So you can filter the accounts based on entities as well. Or you can mark them as favorite and filter only those accounts which you have marked as a favorite. Okay. And the basic data is available for each of those accounts in the snapshot view. And if somebody wants to view the details of a particular account, they can click on this and they'll be navigated to account details here, where basic details of ledger balance, the available balance is shown to the user. They can edit this account and provide it a nickname if needed. By default, the last 20 transactions on this particular account are listed in a reverse chronological order. However, the user can choose any period in the past to list on these transactions. Okay, this application and the details of each of those transactions can also be viewed by clicking on this button. You see all the transaction details here. And if at all this transaction was executed through a check, the check image can be viewed as well. Okay. Moving on, this application can also be used as a mechanism to distribute account statement, okay, which can be accessed from here. So by clicking here, the user can view the past statements or even download them. At the same time, these transactions, based on whatever filter the user has chosen, can be exported in multiple formats. And these formats could be the proprietary CSV or PDF format, or the industry standard formats like MT940 or the ISO 20022 format of CAMP 53, 52, or BAI2. Okay, these extracts can be directly fed into some systems that the members might have for their accounting purposes. Similarly, these were the details that we looked at for a cash account. Similarly, for loan account, the details listed are a little different, right? Because the property of the account itself is different. So we see what type of loan it is, what is the interest rate, what is the composition of that interest rate, how much is available and how much is outstanding. Further details can be seen when we go into details. We'll be able to see what is the last payment, what will be the next payment, when is it due, and what is the amount of the principal payment and the interest payment. Similarly, for a loan account, all the repayment transactions are listed here, apart from the disbursement transactions or further drawdowns that might happen. Similarly, in this right-hand navigation menu, you see different options that the user can take, right? Let's say they want to request a new facility. They want to draw down on an existing facility. And since this is a demo environment we have incorporated all the dashboards here, but these dashboards would be persona specific. If it is a maker, he'll see only the maker's dashboard. The checker would see the items requiring their approval in the checker dashboard. Similarly, the CXO level operators can see their dashboards where important metrics would be listed. Similarly, the payments dashboard will list on all the payment operations and the different kind of payments that have taken place. There are export facilities, there are upload facilities, all are available in the account services domain pack. So once the user is aware of all the cash positions across different locations that they have, they would want to execute funds movement. And for that, we have a different domain pack that we refer to as payments domain pack, which is for payments initiation and management. Okay, now as we spoke about contextuality earlier, by that what I mean is when a payments user logs it, sorry about that, it got timed out because it was open for a long time. So by contextuality, we mean when a payment user logs in, their dashboard, their landing page would look considerably different from what Norman looked at, right? So payments user would have details specific to the payments domain. So for this, we have a user called Harper Williams. And when Harper logs in the snapshot, they'll be able to see how much money went in and how much money went out of their accounts in one day, in the last day. Okay. Below that is something which we refer to as payment center, where different payments are classified based on the life cycle stage of a particular payment that they are in. If any payment has encountered any issues, it has landed in an issues queue that can be accessed by clicking on this tab. If the financial institution or the credit union has implemented request to pay as a payment mechanism, those requests would be present in this tab, okay, where the user can either accept or reject a particular request for payment. In workflow, as we said, is required if the workflow rules have been defined so that any financial or non-financial transaction would require a multi-level approval. So all those would be in this tab. And as you can see, these are all pending approval. And they are pending approval from people as defined in the workflow rules. So apart from this client-facing solution, we also provide a corporate admin module where CBX back office, where the member users can then set up these workflow rules, set up the roles, and create the users for the application. Similarly, once a particular payment is processed thoroughly through the digital solution, it is sent to the payment processor at the credit union. And then the payment moves from in workflow to the send to bank queue. And once we receive a confirmation from the payment processor that the transaction has been processed and the accounting entries have been posted, we move those to completed state. You can search for any payment using different criteria, like what is the amount, what is the counterparty name, and so on. We also have other modules here for like contact management, which is for maintaining your beneficiaries and your billers. Here, the user has an option to click here, and different options available are transfer funds, which is for making book transfers, like a member making transfer between their different accounts. You have an option to file upload, let's say a payroll processing file. The file could be uploaded and it will be processed thoroughly. And also the different payment options which are available as per the jurisdiction. And this user, Harper Williams, resides in Canada. So all the payment options available, the payment rails available are the ones which are specific to Canada. So let's say example of cross-border funds payment where they want to transfer some funds to the US. So as soon as the user clicks on create payments, the first form here is that who do they want to pay to? So the first step is to select the beneficiary. So as I said, we have contacts management where we've maintained a beneficiary. Let's say we want to make a payment to Green Labs. And Green Labs has an account in US dollar. And let us assume we're making this payment from a Canadian dollar account. So as soon as we enter the amount, and since the payment currency is US dollar, we see that the FX rate got populated here. This by default is today's rate. At the same time, if the member has a forward contract with the credit union for exchange rate, that can be fetched from the treasury solution and presented here. So this would ensure that this customer gets a better rate of 1.36. And the converted amount in Canadian dollars is presented here. Once the basic payment information is added, the member user also has a provision to add any document. And this document is additional information for the approver. let's say we add an invoice. So the approver, when approving this particular payment, would be aware that this is a payment made against this particular invoice and everything is fine with the payment. So and you may send an advice to the customer as well, the beneficiary as well. Then the beneficiary bank details, these are populated from the contact that we've maintained for this US dollar payment. Similarly, the beneficiary details are also coming from the contact management that we've done. Some additional information which is required with respect to a cross-border fund transfer is entered here. Let's say this is the unique identifier for that beneficiary you're paying to. What is the purpose of this payment? Let's say it is some bonus payment that is being sent. In case the user is aware of who the correspondent bank or the intermediary bank would be, those can be selected here. And one other important feature with respect to a cross-border transfer is the charge option. Who will bear the charges for this particular transfer, whether it will be paid by the beneficiary, paid by the ordering customer, or whether it will be shared between the two. So let's say it is paid by the ordering customer. Any additional remittance information with respect to this payment can be entered as well. So after entering the information, the user clicks on add. And what you'll notice is the form goes blank and the payment is added here. So this just provides you another option to add another payment added to the list here. So once the user has added multiple payments here, this would mean that the verifier can approve all those payments in one go if that is required. The user has an option to review the transaction. And you see the amount, although I entered 12345, it has been converted to Canadian dollar using the exchange rate that was selected. The charges of $30 because it is to be paid by the ordering customer are also added here. And the complete payment snapshot is available here for the review. And before the user submits it, they accept the terms and conditions and they submit this transaction. So once the transaction is submitted, based on the workflow rules defined in the back office application, the transaction would either be submitted to the payment processor or it will be pending approval from different users. Having said that, as I said, there are different rails that we support. We support more than 75 rails globally, 75 payment rails globally, and the forms have been contextualized to that particular payment rail. Let's say if we choose Interact e-transfer, the form would be considerably different from what we saw for a cross-border fund transfer. If you see here, you simply select the beneficiary, you pay from an account, the date, and simply as soon as I select, I'll select one. Let's say we're paying global logistics. So now you see the security question. If the beneficiary has not registered for auto deposit, we'll have to give a question answer here. We'll have to provide information on how the notification would be sent, whether through email or SMS or both, and then we go through the transaction. So basically, this is like showing you that for different payment trails, we have carefully crafted user journeys for the user with specific fields pertaining to that particular payment trail. Another option now that I'll like to show you is this is how a commercial user would submit a transaction. But in case the member user is not aware of the specific payment trail they would want to use to execute this payment. So for this, let me log in through a different user who belongs to a relatively smaller organization. Okay, and this user is not aware that these are the payment options which are available to me. So what this user would do is they'll simply enter the information that this is the beneficiary I want to pay to, and this is the amount that I want to send from this particular account. So they select the option pay someone. And if you see, as soon as they log in here, they're made aware of all the transfers that this customer has made from different accounts to different beneficiaries. So the user selects a beneficiary. Let's say it is Canadian beneficiary. So if you notice the contextuality of the application, the recent payments here are now filtered down to the ones which have been made to this particular beneficiary. Okay, all these different payments. All of them have an option to copy this payment, because if it is a recurring payment and you want to pay the same beneficiary again, you can simply copy this. Then you select the account from which you would want to execute this transaction. Let's say this is the account we want to make this transfer from. So now again, you'd see that this transaction list is filtered where the transfers are made to this beneficiary from the selected account. The user enters an amount here. If you want to send an advice to the customer, you can check that. Again, the supporting document for the approval can be added, and you say continue. So now whether this payment, when should it be sent or received by the beneficiary, that date can be selected. Even the time for the debit can be selected if need be. If you want to make this transfer recurring, you say yes, and the user would have to specify the frequency at which it will be executed. And then as soon as the user says continue, the system would use its knowledge and it will show them all the options which are available to the user. And since it was a Canadian payment where the beneficiary's account was in Canadian dollar and the from account was in Canadian dollar as well, you see these are the three options available: EFT, wire transfer, and Interact transfers, with indications for the speed at which the transfer would be carried out. So the more the rockets, the faster the transfer would be. And then there is a fee associated with each of the payment. So let's say this transfer that the user is making is not very critical, time critical, and they want to save as much cost as possible on this. So they choose the option for EFT. And as soon as you select a particular payment rail, you enter that payment rail specific information. Let's say we all know that for electronic fund transfer transaction, you need an originator ID. So you enter the originator ID, you choose the purpose of this transfer, and then you say continue, and the transfer would be submitted. So here is the detail of the transaction. The user simply accepts the terms and conditions and submits this transaction. So based on this, based on the workflow rules that have been set up, it will either go for approval or it will be directly sent to the payment processor at the bank. Okay. So this is about the different capabilities we have with respect to account services and payment initiation. And now we'll quickly jump over to the differentiating capabilities that Steve was mentioning about liquidity management and virtual account management. So liquidity management is basically making sure that a business has enough cash available to pay its bills and manage account payables on time, while also making smart use of the extra cash by, let's say, investing it to get more returns on it. So that can be navigated from here. So today I'll take you through the operational sweeps, which are also known as cash concentration sweeps module, that businesses use to execute automated fund transfer between their various operational accounts for efficient working capital management. So what you see here is that these are the different sweep structures that they've created. A sweep structure is nothing but a group of sweep instructions, and sweep instructions are the specific rules which have been defined on fulfillment of which the transfer would be executed automatically. Okay, so now let's say the daily collections sweep structure that we look at, it has 5 accounts where one of the accounts, the Dallas account, has been marked as the parent account, and the Seattle, Vegas, Denver, and Phoenix account are the child account in the structure. This sweep structure type that we have here is a target balancing one, where some target balance is left in the account. Okay, and this is left as a working capital. If it is a daily sweep, this is a working capital requirement for every day by the Seattle branch. Okay. And you see the bidirectional arrows. So this just means that if the Seattle account is in deficit, the parent account would contribute funds to the Seattle account. And if this account in Seattle is in surplus, the surplus money would be swept and cash collections, daily cash collections would be accomplished. We can go to the details of a particular sweep here. And we see, we can also see a pictorial representation of the sweep structure. So we see that these are the 4 instructions that have been set up in this particular priority. That means when the sweep structure is getting executed, the first instruction would be executed first on its successful completion, the second, third, and the fourth respectively. And this is the parent account. Hovering over this would give us detail about what is this transfer actually. Okay. In case, let's say there is a 5th location which is added to the business now, you have an option to add an instruction to this structure. And if you see, adding an instruction is fairly intuitive, and a user does not need much training on how to add a sweep instruction. So it simply reads like an English sentence that ensure that this particular child account is either restored to or debited by or is moved to a balance within a particular range. Then you mention the account by crediting or debiting the parent account here. Okay. The next thing is to choose whether to execute this manually or this should be automatically executed at a desired frequency. If you say automatically, the user has to provide the frequency. Then the holiday handling, whether what should happen if the day of execution happens to be a holiday. Do we skip it altogether, or we still execute it on a previous day, next day, or on the holiday itself? You can decide to end the sweep. Let's say there was a specific purpose, and when the purpose is met, you might want to terminate the sweep instruction. So you can give an end date. Otherwise, it will run in perpetuity. So this is about the sweeps module, and quickly moving on to the next topic, which is sub-accounting. So sub-accounting basically refers to the practice of breaking down one account into multiple sub-accounts. Okay, it is like having a multiple labeled jars within a single bank account to keep your money organized. Instead of opening separate accounts for different expenses, a business can create sub-accounts under one main account, one main banking account to track funds for specific purposes like payroll, taxes, or to plan a project's budget. So for this illustration, let's say we saw Acme Recreations, and now the same user is logging into our sub-accounting module. So there are two variants of sub-accounting. One is virtual account management, which is used by corporates to efficiently manage their cash. And the second one is called escrow account management, which is used by agents, typically known as escrow agents, to manage third-party funds. Third-party means their clients. So that solution is also known as client money management. And there's a multitude of use cases we support out of the box in that area. I'll demonstrate a few to you. So first of all, with respect to virtual accounts management, which is used for corporate cash management, once the customer is onboarded to a particular a virtual account solution, first of all, they don't need to have a lot of physical accounts. They can optimize that number and reduce it to few. Let's say this particular customer in this example has reduced their 32 cash accounts to just two accounts, one in the US, one in Canada. Okay, and these accounts are onboarded along with the customer when they are onboarded to the virtual account service. And underneath this, they create their own structure. Let's say Toronto is the Canadian head office, and they have operations in these four cities: Calgary, Winnipeg, Vancouver, and Quebec. For each of the locations, they can further subdivide their accounts into VA collections, virtual account for suppliers, and VA for salaries. Okay. So it's only the physical account that is onboarded, and underneath it, the whole account structure in a hierarchical fashion was created by the members themselves. So we have options to create virtual accounts from the digital application, and in case multiple sub-accounts are to be created in one go, they can even upload a virtual account file and create those accounts. Okay. The transactions in these virtual accounts are executed through the concepts of payments on behalf of and collections on behalf of. And that simply means that the payments on behalf of a collections account is made from the associated physical account, the DDA. Okay, we can go to the details of any of these accounts. And we see the basic details here. What is the ledger balance? What is the validated balance? What is the available balance at this account? Whether transactions, because you can also control whether a particular account in an account structure is meant for transactions or only for aggregation purposes. So like we see the city level aggregation account for Calgary that we have, both credit and debit type of transactions are allowed on this. Similarly, different type of transaction limits, overdraft limits may be enforced on a particular account. And these account numbers that you see here, these are directly addressable in the clearing process. So although this is a virtual account, but if somebody has to pay their Calgary office, the Calgary office can give this account number and they can send any payment, just like a regular payment that is being done to a physical demand deposit account. The same can be done to a virtual account as well. Scrolling down, we'll be able to see all the transactions that have happened on this particular account and the sub-accounts of this account. Okay, so this is the Calgary payments account, the VA for collections, VA for salaries and suppliers, right? So these different transactions happened on accounts which are sub-accounts to this level, but they all got aggregated and contributed to this balance that we refer to as rolled up balance. So this is just by the virtue of transactions on the sub-accounts to this particular account. So this is one variant of sub-accounting that we have. I'll quickly navigate to
Vishal, sorry.
Yes, see?
We're running a little late, and I would acknowledge that it was my verbosity that caused us to run late, not yours. So maybe if you could just talk about what escrow accounts is very briefly, because there are a couple of questions, and I do want to wind this up. Okay.
Sure. So as we said, escrow accounts are also sub-accounts but these are meant for specific purposes. Like in this illustration, we see that this is being used by a property management company called Lincoln Properties, and they have 13 buildings that have 25 apartments that house 38 different tenants. And these tenants pay different kind of deposits to this Lincoln Properties. Okay, so what this escrow solution enables them is, and these different tenants would pay different kind of deposits with the landlord, right? And those deposits could be the last month rent, could be the pet deposit, it could be any miscellaneous deposit as well. So this solution enables them to segregate those funds per tenant without actually opening a new physical account per tenant. Okay, so they can simply go to the create option, register a new tenant, and every tenant would be living in certain apartment in a particular building. So that connection is established here, and the funds are deposited in the tenant's account. So although the property management company still has one account, they're still able to drill down to the details. Let's say this particular customer's account, this particular building, Silvercrest, this has different apartments. One of the apartments holds Lucy as a tenant. So when we click on Lucy's account, we see these are the different categories under which she has paid. She's given 1,350 for last month rent, some miscellaneous deposit, some security deposit, and some pet deposit. So all this collectively.
Vishal, sorry,
Yes.
we're 1 minute away from the end of the time, so we're just going to have to end that there. The reason we've gone pretty late is it turns out there's only one question. And it's from Bill Smith about how long are check images available. That would be one topic that we could agree with your credit union. How long are check images available in our solution? They would certainly be also transitioned and be available in whatever check image solution you have, if you have one. But that is a configurable thing between us. So thanks again, Vishal. Thank you to Stacy. Thanks to everyone who's joined. If there are any follow-up questions that you have, please do feel free to reach out. As I mentioned at the outset, we are starting to talk to a number of credit unions. If we haven't gotten ourselves proactively to you, my apologies, but certainly feel free to reach out to us. So thanks all again very much. I hope this was of great interest, and we will be announcing several more webinars in the near future. Thanks all. Have a great rest of the day and a good weekend. Bye-bye.